Paper 2 in the first certificate exam is the writing paper. It has two parts. In part 2, you have a series of options. One of them is writing an informal letter or email. When writing an informal letter, you are usually replying to another letter. You would normally start with a greeting, then acknowledge the letter to which you are replying. It is often a good idea to acknowledge some key information given in the original letter too. You can also make a comment on your reply. Acknowledge means show that you have read what your friend has told you. There are some useful phrases for the opening. It is a good idea to memorize some of them so that you can use them in your letters. Connectors. All good writing makes good use of connectors. However, many of the connectors you have learned from other styles of writing are inappropriate in an informal letter or email. For informal writing, you need to use some of the connectors that are more specific to spoken language. This is one of the areas which is evaluated in the first certificate writing. It is the correct use of register. Is it a formal writing? Use formal language. Is it informal? Use informal language. Please learn the different connectors that you can use for different functions: to introduce a topic, to go back to a previous topic, to introduce surprising or bad news, to summarize what you've already said. Let's look at this task. The rubric or instructions will always start with "You have received," in this case, "this email from your English-speaking friend Jean." You will have part of the email. In this case, "I hear you organized a surprise party for your mother. I'd love to hear about it. What kind of party did you organize? Who did you invite? How did it go? Do tell me. Love, Jean." This is very important for you because here you have the guide for your answer. You know you have to write to Jean and you have to answer certain things. These things are all in the rubric. Also remember that you have a specific number of words between 140 and 190. Finally, it reminds you in an appropriate style, meaning that it must look like a letter and the type of language should be informal language in this particular case. Let's see, this is the answer. "Hi, Jean." And you start your reply by referring to the sender's letter. You say, "Good to hear from you again. I hope you're still enjoying your job." You give reasons for replying. "I'm glad you asked me about the party I planned for my mother's birthday. Well, I have to say it was a fantastic success. and you continue talking about that. Remember that in informal language you use contractions. For example, on the second line here, it says a quiet meal at a local restaurant with just the family. But in fact, I'd hired a large room. I'd instead of I had. Next paragraph. Start a new paragraph as the topic has changed slightly. Use an informal linking word. Example. Anyway, I picked my mother up and told her blah blah blah. So here the writer is actually describing what happened that day. On the second line here, at the end, she just couldn't believe it and burst into tears. Burst into tears. Please use a range of expressions and exclamation marks to show emotion. Next, when you close, make an excuse to finish. Example, must dash now, I've got to go to college. Hope to hear from you. It's a short sentence, but in this particular case, it is absolutely acceptable. Also, make sure you finish with an informal phrase. For example, love, Anne, your name, as a signature.